All right, here we go. So right now we've got 43 of our 57 Texas agents on. So that's pretty good. People will still keep coming on here, and it's so fun to see everybody's faces, especially those of you who are brave enough in the mornings to be on video with us. And so it's really fun to see faces. I'm going to show you really quick. This is a referral check. And I'm showing you this because in the last 30 days, between all of our teams, we've had 14 referrals go back and forth. These are all the ones I know about. I'm sure there's like a lot that I don't know about. And I wanted to give Elizabeth Gass, let's see you on here, shout out. She closed one of Beth's clients, one of our clients here. Beth found this client through her Facebook group that she farms. I think she's like on listing number 2 or number 3. So we might have her on coming up. Just tell us like what she does for that. But anyway, she got the seller, she sold the seller, she sent him to Elizabeth in like probably, I don't know, where did they buy? Like Plano or something? Little
Elm is where they ended up.
Little Elm. I don't even know where that is, but that sounds awesome. It sounds like a referral check to me. And Elizabeth got to make some money. Beth got to make some money. There is a lot of referrals going back and forth in a very short amount of time. So let me give you some year-to-date stats so you can write them down, and then we'll go from there, yeah? So right now in Texas, so this is just Texas agents that are part of like the BKT network, not like the Experience network. I don't have that data yet. But like Sarissa, Jordan, Brandon, Laura, my team, Everett, like all of our teams, 57 agents. These 57 agents year to date have closed 390 units. That's only sales, you guys. 390 for us, okay? If we added we probably have like 150 leases on top of that. But let's focus on sales because that's the money maker, right? Sales volume, you guys, 120 million sales volume closed already. We have 45 million sales volume pending. So we are like in the next 45 days, we're closing another 45. We're like basically going to start averaging $1 million a day here in a second. It's kind of crazy. Because like 4 years ago, we were like trying to like get our next commission check, right? So far, gross commission income, 3.3 million GCI, right? So what that actually means, you guys, is we are a $3.3 million revenue company in the state of Texas. That's pretty crazy. Here's what it all means, right? Because like these are like big numbers and we're kind of used to hearing big numbers. Let me tell you what it means. I looked up all of the data of all of the teams in Texas, not just North Texas, not just South Texas, not Central Texas, but all of Texas. And you guys know Texas is the second most populous state in the United States, right? Right now, in terms of units, we are number 10 across all teams in the state of Texas. So if you just use just our data, we're number 10. If you look at how much volume we've sold, we're number 7. So at this rate, like just think like 4.5 years ago, we were 0 because we didn't even exist in the state of Texas, basically. And we had some sales, but they were not any sales that any of us would be like, yeah, let's go. So that was really cool. The reason I'm sharing this with you guys is when you go on appointments, when you're lead generating, I want you to feel so freaking confident that you're able to deliver at the highest level, that the resources, the training, the network, the results that you guys have together, they are absolutely phenomenal, you guys. We're like, this is the big leagues and we are in the Super Bowl right now. And it's super exciting. So with that said, now you have all the data. Third quarter bullet points. Let's talk about that. It's past mid-year, so we've already passed the mid-year mark. And we're now in the third quarter. I was talking to a few of my agents this week and we're like, oh my God, how did that happen? How did we get to July, mid-July already? The reason the third quarter is so important, you guys, is it's our best shot to meet our goals for 2020. Because what happens in the fourth quarter? What are we working for in the fourth quarter? Not really this year, right? The next year. And so I thought it would be brilliant to have Jordan and Laura and Sarissa on this morning, because they've been in this spot like 10 times already, 10 years, or however many years, right? They've been where each of us are right now. And so this is our time to take like full opportunity of the third quarter. And so I'm going to start with Sarissa, and then I'm going to go to Jordan, and then I'm going to go with Laura. And then if you guys have any questions, I'm going to be manning the chat box. So I will definitely ask those questions when I see them come up, or feel free to unmute yourself and just engage with us. All right, Sarissa, you there?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Tell us about you. Not all of us know you. Tell us everything we need to know about you.
Oh my gosh. Well, so I'm entering, this is my 14th third quarter of selling in real estate. I have two sweet little boys. I live in Dallas, truly in Dallas. Everyone's like, no, but we're in Dallas. I'm like, in Dallas, big metroplex here. Yeah, I have treated real estate like a true full-time, no backup plan career since 2014. Even though I've had my license, 13 plus years. Yeah, this is what, year six or seven of treating it like it's the only plan.
Okay, so you had your license and you were kind of like dabbling, if you will, right? And then you were like, darn it, this is it. This is my career for 6 years. So you're 6 years in the making right now.
Well, we've talked a little bit about how, and forgive me, I planned to be there, and this access road is not moving. So I plan to be like prepped for my 9 a.m. appointment. So I'm a little distracted with driving, and I'm super sorry, but I can't get off this road. Anyways, so here's what happened. I actually got into real estate as my full-time plan in 2007. However, I was $120,000 in debt with no house, by the way. Like, that doesn't include house. That was just 120 grand in debt. And I was like, holy cow, this is harder than I thought, number one. Number two, I just, like many of you guys, I think of the Marias of the world, and I had to work 2 jobs for the first, few years in order to pay off enough of my debt that I felt more freedom, if you will, to jump into this full time. So, some of you guys have those financial obstacles and those maybe like drunk monkeys of like, this is hard, and can I do this, and is it worth it? And I've been there, right? But I will tell you one thing that you guys all have that I didn't have is I was actually at a brokerage for my first 6.5 years that had no training, no models and systems, no toolkits, nobody to call across the country. Leadership was non-existent. So I look at it and I'm like, man, thank you, God, that like I'm still here, because I could have easily been like, this is hard, it doesn't work, and not entered, Keller Williams, which changed my life. So anyways, just a little bit about my beginnings.
I love that. Can you think of something that you've overcome in the last 6 years?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is hilarious. So when I first came to KW, I jumped into Bold and like had so many drunk monkeys or whatever, I wish we'd come up with a new term for that. But I started Bold like when I first came to Keller Williams, and no joke, I had somebody like 2 years ago say, hey, Sarissa, remember when you cried like every week of Bold when you first came to Keller Williams? And I was like, no, but glad you remember that. And now they're like, look at you now. And I just have to laugh because I had so many things to overcome and so many tears cried. And they had to do with things like raising my financial thermostat, which just means like believing that I could do more than I was already doing, or that I could have a life bigger than I already had. And things like crying just about like feeling busy, but not knowing where I was going to get leverage or how to hire, or the fears behind bringing on talent. And I mean, so no joke, how long is that thing? 8 weeks. I had 8 big things to cry about. That, I mean, 1 week I got kicked out because my attitude stunk so bad. And for those of you guys that work with me, you know I don't have a stinky attitude, but like I just had to overcome so many mental blocks. And so it's kind of funny looking back, but I can relate with a lot of people when they are just struggling with the mindset blocks, you know, whatever it is, who to call. I remember my TL asked me, he was like, who are you afraid to call? And I was like, I don't know, probably somebody from my sphere that I hadn't talked with in 10 years. And I feel like Alicia's done such a good job of helping us overcome on our calls, like how she gets over that. But I mean, no joke, I cried in front of my TL. I was like, I'm not calling. I mean, I sound like the biggest baby, which I'm not, but man, I just had so much to get through mentally. It cracks me up now.
Do you remember kind of a few things that you did to get over some of these mental blocks? Because these are like mental blocks are a real thing.
Yeah. First of all, I had people that believed in me surrounding me at that point to go, you can do this, and here's the plan of how we're going to do this, but you're going to have to do the work. Like, I can give you the plan, I can be your cheerleader, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're still responsible for doing the dirty work and showing up and working long hours and working when you're tired and putting on a whatever, right? Like, so I think having a plan, having a mentor, or we have a team, thank goodness, right, of people that support those goals. But ultimately, I just had to show up and do it.
Okay, so sometimes, Sarissa, do you remember like showing up over and over and not getting results? Did that ever happen to you?
Oh yeah, I always joke with my agents because probably my first 2 years at KW, this is embarrassing, but like, you know how we talk about roller coaster businesses and just like you make a lot and then you make nothing. I mean, no joke, the first 2 years here, I started January, February, and I want to say one of those years I started March with goose eggs. And like, I was like, oh my gosh, like first quarter, no dollars. And, but I still annihilated my goals. So like, I was still showing up going like, okay, they say that this is going to pay off. And like, no joke, my first year at Keller Williams, I was like, I'm going to sell 6 mil. January, February, March, goose eggs, in bold, crying. And then I ended up selling 12 mil that year. So I doubled what I had set out to achieve because I continued to do the steps, make the calls, et cetera, even when the results weren't showing up.
Got it. Do you remember a time where you had to break through a ceiling? Or like a time where you had really, like, it was messy and you had to overcome all of that?
Yeah, so I think every time I think about ceilings, I think about at KW how we discuss moving from E to P. And anytime you're hitting a ceiling over and over, it's because you typically need to add a system or a person, right? So, I mean, probably my most recent is, how many times since 2016 am I so sick of hitting 40 to 42 mil every year, no matter the team size, no matter the amazing talent we have. And I'm like, what in the world am I doing? And I got like the Ben Kinney team behind me. Like, I got all the things. And yet, like, I had to show up as a different leader, number one. So when I think about the who actually in this case wasn't somebody else, the who was me. And that was like a big mind shift for me. But if you look at our numbers now, next month, we will have already hit what we hit last year. And we've brought in amazing people into our world. So the who was also additional talent, like the additional amazing people that we've gotten into business with, but also my agents that have been like tried and true for the last 2 to 4 years, their businesses are growing. They're getting to show up as new people and bigger leaders and get through their mindset blocks. So yeah, I think that's probably the most recent, but all of us have had to show up differently for our businesses.
That is
And I mean, let's be real. Hold up. Let's be real too. Last year I was like, Ben, I'm sick of hitting my ceiling. Like, what am I doing? And he's like, you have no leverage. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I have Natalie and she's a bomb. And he's like, yeah, Natalie's in charge of how many of you guys, helping how many of you guys? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, Sarissa, you did the opportunity model and grew your team to $1 million+ team. He's like, you need to do it again. And what's the first place to start? Showing agent and admin. So basically last fall, I hired my personal leverage, Samantha Morrell, who is literally like, she could just be me. It's awesome. And so the reality is, like, I needed to follow the model and do it again in my own business.
So
and show my agents that they can do it too, right?
And before you do that, it really did start with you, right? That was like, actually, I had never thought of it that way. Like, it's always a person or a system, but ultimately, like, the who is us first, and then we add. And I love that. I hope you guys got that. Sometimes the who isn't someone else. Sometimes the who is you. I love that. Okay, we're going into the third quarter, fourth quarter, second half. You know all about second halves because you are part of a lot of games. And you've seen a lot of comebacks. You've seen a lot of awesome stuff. What would you say for the game of real estate? What advice would you give everybody on the call?
Don't take your foot off the pedal. A lot of times we start like high-fiving ourselves and like, oh, results, are looking good. Look at my pendings. But the reality is, like, this year more than any year, we can't take our foot off the pedal. And I would say that because we don't know if we're going to have another shutdown. We don't know if we're going to, Trek and NAR and all these people this year have just like thrown a few wrenches into what we're even allowed to do with coming soons and just some of the, restrictions for us in Dallas on opens for a while there. And so I would just say, like, make money while we can make money right now, make the calls while we can make the calls. And ultimately, like, love on your sphere of influence right now. Those would be like my biggest things. And that's where Samantha and I are focusing our time on my personal business and where we've got to just be focusing as a team.
Okay.
So I think about this weekend, I think about what you said, and not to pick on us in Dallas here, but we are blessed to be having open houses right now. And we are blessed that, like, people are showing up to them in droves. And there are a lot of people, even in Dallas right now, that don't have open houses set for this weekend. And they're the ones choosing to not take advantage of opportunities while we have them, right? Unfortunately. So it is what it is, but it's their choice.
Yeah. We all have businesses and we all have, we choose how we run our businesses. And I think that's really solid advice. Like, this is the time more than any other time not to take your foot off the gas pedal, knowing how unknown everything is and uncertain everything is. And Ben always talks about, like, focus on what you can control. And open houses is something that we can control in the state of Texas for sure. You're awesome, Sarissa. Thank you so much for taking time. I know you have an appointment and you made this happen. So thank you. You are awesome.
Thanks for changing the format for me. I appreciate this rocks. I can't wait to get to listen in on Jordan and Laura and everybody a little bit later. I'll watch the recording. So have a great day, guys. I
love it. Jordan. All right. So Jordan, tell us about you. You might be the one we know least about. So talk to us about you.
I'm Jordan Davis, and we have the Davis team and cover predominantly Fort Worth, North and South. We closed 1.25 million last year. 1.25 million in GCI, $50 million in production. That was on our own, and in February we partnered with Ben and you guys and Place, and Adelina, you and I met going on stage for, was it Mecca Camp, or I think it was Family Reunion. So yeah, just probably 8 months before, or a year before I joined.
I love that. What does your husband do? Do you have kids?
Yeah, so my husband is a licensed realtor, but he actually sells corporate benefit insurance. He did step into our business for a couple of years. I think he was here about 3 years, helping put some systems together. I got into the business August of 2013, so I'm coming up on my 7-year anniversary. And really, after 3 years in the business, it just started exploding, and I had no systems in place. And so people were falling through the cracks, and Matt stepped into our business to help add some systems. And it really took us to the next level. We hired Leah Real, who's on this call, and she was able to take over the systems that Matt set up. And gosh, she keeps our ship rolling, keeps it afloat. And so, yeah, Matt stepped back into corporate benefit insurance. I have 2 boys, they're 5 and 8. Aiden and Carson. And so, yeah, I originally, before real estate, was a stay-at-home mom for a year, and that was a disaster. I was like, babies don't do anything. This sucks. And so I need a lot going on at one time. And Matt was like, hey, you followed me all around, the US for my career. Let's figure out what you really love and go do that. So I'm from Bethany, Oklahoma. I went to school at Texas A&M. Like every good Aggie, I graduated with both rings. And if you know A&M, that's funny. And then we shortly moved to Florida pursuing his career. I moved back to Dallas-Fort Worth because I was pregnant with my oldest, and I stayed at home for a year and then said, I think I should get into real estate. So I didn't really know anybody, and I think anybody in their right mind would have told me that was a really bad idea, but it worked. It worked out. And so I originally got into real estate hoping to really be more involved at home. And I thought if I could just sell, 5 or 6 homes in my first year, that'd be great. And I sold 17. So I was like, well, I guess this is a full thing. So yeah, we did 17, 24, 45. Matt came in the business after we had closed 45, 90 the next year, 122, and then 187 last year.
That's incredible. And did you start at Keller Williams Jordan, or did you start somewhere else?
Yep, born and bred at KW. I interviewed with Ebby, Century 21, and KW, and I remember sitting outside in the parking lot and just praying. Nothing was really fitting and nothing was making sense. I felt like everything in my life had made sense to go this direction, except I just didn't feel like I clicked with a broker. Everybody was old at Ebby and old at Century 21. Their training was old and tired, and nothing clicked. And when I walked into KW and the red and the TL was super exciting, like it just clicked for me.
I love that. Okay, so walk us through like a couple times you've had to overcome something, and like what was your process? Because that's the hardest thing that we're finding, right? Like people know what to do, but then there's things that show up in life, right? And when things show up in life for you, what did that look like and how did you handle it?
Gosh, so I would say probably one of the first big things was when I took over as just a listing agent on our team. Originally, our team did just listings, just buyers. Like you were either one or the other. And I was the only listing agent for the team supporting 3 buyers agents with a big goal. I think that year was 60 listings taken. Last year, I took 100. And so, but when we started looking, I just wasn't closing, and we took a look at my conversion rate. It was 35%. It was terrible. Yeah. So our team actually already had a business coach, and I hired another coach to coach me on listings. Like I got to do something. I was in bold and I was like, I got to do something because this literally controls the trajectory of the team. If we don't have listings, we don't have open houses, we don't have, sellers that need to buy. Like I'm currently the ceiling of our team. So it was really a vulnerable place to be like, I'm going to get my own coach and go back to the ground up, and I'm going to let the team hold me accountable, be vulnerable enough to have them hold me accountable to these are the things that I need to do, and I need to script practice, and I needed this, and I needed that, and I need you guys to hold me accountable to that. Really what it came down to, and we were able to increase conversion to 85% within 6 months, was I wasn't pre-qualifying my appointments. So I was going on appointments that weren't appointments. Nobody would have called that an appointment. Like it was a preview, or they thought we had a buyer or something like that because we had inside sales agents setting those appointments. So it really came down to our pre-qual wasn't enough. Delivering a pre-listing packet before I ever arrived, we set that system in place as a team. Going through language of sales 3 times with tie downs and mirror and matching and all the ways that you can get a seller to relate to you and want to work with you and like you. Closing 3 times in the appointment and following up if we don't get the paperwork. So a follow-up system where I follow up 3 times, and if they're just not responding, it gets kicked back to our inside sales agent.
Okay, so I wrote down better pre-qual system, pre-listing packet sent before the appointment. You took language of sales 3 times. You closed 3 times in the appointment, and you followed up a minimum of 3 times after the appointment if you didn't get a sign.
Yep.
Accurate?
Yep.
Okay. 35% conversion rate to 85% conversion rate. I want everybody to hear that. That's massive. Like, that's not everyday numbers. So just for everybody on the team, language of sales, we have that. If anybody wants to listen to it, we do have that for you to be able to listen to on demand. Okay, God, that's amazing. Dang, Jordan. I feel like if we got our conversion as a whole group to 85%, you guys would work like 50% less hours. I can just tell you that much. That's awesome.
And it was disheartening going on appointments that weren't really appointments, right? And so once we figured out what is an appointment, what isn't an appointment, then it wasn't, I wasn't running comps, getting net sheets, all the things to get ready for these. And maybe it is an agent preview that the seller's interested in, and we need to do that to build a relationship. That's fine. Let's not call it an appointment.
Okay, so so define an appointment for us then. How do you see it?
Yeah, so all parties that are decision makers are going to be there. They are prepared to sign at the appointment. And we have an opportunity to ask for the business. So if they are, let's say their parents died and they're in the middle of probate, that's great. It's a preview. It's not an appointment. They don't have the opportunity to sign. They don't have the authority to sign. So we may have a great preview and it's not an appointment, and they feel like an agent needs to go because these people have a lot of questions. So we either schedule, let's say now we'd have a great opportunity to just schedule a Zoom call to answer questions. But additionally, back in the day when we could go places, we would just go by and preview, have kind of a consultation with them. But that's not a listing appointment that you're using as a percentage that would count against you from that standpoint.
Got it. Okay.
To nurture.
Sometimes though, like, let's say that an agent needs to have, say, 6 listing appointments that month, right? Or you can call it even a buyer appointment, right? Often we want to count those appointments because it makes us feel good to hit like our 6 or our 5 or our 4. I think I see that like a lot. I don't know if you see that.
Whatever you measure is going to improve, and sometimes you kind of scoot by to improve it. So then I think that's what's important about coaching is you look at all of those numbers. Like you're saying, Adelina, yes, we were hitting the appointments because we were paying the ISA per appointment. Well, guess what? Everything's an appointment. And so whatever you're measuring or whatever you're pushing for is going to improve and it's going to stretch. That's okay because the activity's there. And what I love to see is the activities there, and we can fine tune exactly what is an appointment. But I see somebody focused on the right activities, and I'm going to support that.
Okay. Love it. What about when you got really busy or when something got really messy or you had to break through a ceiling? Like a lot of our agents get to that point, right? You go from like launching to now like then you being in growth mode, and then after that being in achievement mode, right? There's ceilings along the ways. Like what did that look like for you, and like what advice would you give everyone?
Gosh, I mean, I really sat down and thought about this. A time when the team was missing listings, like we just didn't have them. And I spent from noon until 6 p.m. calling through everybody that I had gone on appointments with and not taken paperwork with, and just asked them, what do you want to pay me? Because I knew if I could get the ball rolling for the team, if we could get listings, we could have open houses, we could earn the opportunity for more business, it would just get the ball rolling again. But we had business just kind of come to a standstill when we were a smaller team and we had a major team member leave, and business really came to a standstill. So I remember sitting there from noon until 6, taking whatever I could from a listing standpoint, because I knew if I could just get the ball rolling, everything else would come into play. And that's exactly what happened. In fact, we did an open house blitz 3 years ago during this time as well. And I remember trying to schedule 5 to 8 open houses at once for our team. And that felt like big time chaos. Now we do 10 a week as like our standard. That's no big deal. And I remember that feeling crazy. We read the book, 4 Disciplines of Execution. That book talks about why you start a diet, why you start exercising, why you start a new hobby, start a career path, and never finish it. And that's, it's kind of in alignment with BOLD. You get doing the activity and suddenly life gets crazy with the results. And you get overwhelmed and you focus on the result and you stop focusing on the activity. And so it's how do I balance life with the increased activity and continuing to do, or with the increased result and continuing to do the activity. And so 4 Disciplines of Execution, or also called 4DX, was insanely helpful for us in order to balance how do we keep going, how do we keep doing it all. So we're not riding the real estate roller coaster of highs and lows, and I have no business, I have a ton of business, and I'm drowning. How do we keep that consistency?
Okay, I love that. So you went back to all of the appointments you've ever been on, and that's something that all of us on the call could do.
Mm-hmm.
And just at that point, like, what does it take to just get it signed? Good.
What is it going to take? What do you want to hire me for? Let's go, right? And that's not our norm, but at the time when it was nothing, it was like, we got to get the ball rolling again, whatever it takes, right?
Right. Because without momentum, right? You guys remember, like, John Maxwell talks about the law of the big mo, right? Momentum is everything in a business, right? And when you've got momentum, there's nothing that can stop you. And when you don't have momentum, it's like the littlest things that will like just shut you right down.
Absolutely. I also thought about the 2 knee surgeries that I've had through real estate, and they were back-to-back years. They were a year apart, and that was really hard because I had to have my ACL replaced. The first time I was back at work very quickly. I was headed to appointments. I was probably not doing everything that the doctors said that I should be doing. And a year later, I tore it again. So I had to go back into surgery, and that was. We talk about things that are professionally hard. That was personally hard, like a really hard mental. The recovery and the physical therapy on a knee surgery is god awful. And the idea of going through it again, I just was like, am I resilient enough for this? Do I have what it takes? Can the business stay running? I wanted to quit. I kind of wanted to quit everything and went through a period of depression. And I remember our team is really like a family. And I remember the team with such a strong bond that they were like calling me every day, like, when are you coming back? How are you feeling? We love you. We've got it. We've got this. And I just relied on their belief in me until I believed in myself to get through it.
Oh my God, I love that. And you guys have such a family. You guys are amazing. All of your agents are amazing. I love them. Okay, Jordan, so speaking of roller coasters and all of that and momentum, what would you say to everyone for the second half of the year? What's your advice?
When you talk to me, you're going to hear about numbers. We talk numbers a lot. I get a lot of people who say, wow, you really know your numbers. I don't know my numbers because I'm a C. In fact, I'm not. I'm a 99D and a 99I. I think my C went negative on the disc, right? And so like it went back inward. And so I don't know them because I'm a high C and I love numbers at all. I know my numbers because I know the formula that it takes to get to success. So every week we do our numbers. I don't know if you can see them right here, but it's, you know, where are we at on lead set, listings, appointments taken under contract and close, and buyer appointments taken under contract and close. I know the minimum I need to break even as an expansion partner. I know what my profitability goal is when it comes to closings. And so we know how close we are to that. We track those numbers weekly. We talk about them weekly. I input them for our 2 coaches, our We talk about them as an executive team. We talk about them as a entire team. So knowing your numbers and what it takes for you to hit your goal. Don't look left or right. Who cares what the person next to you is doing, what the team next to you is doing? Who cares? They won the best dressed award, voted by their mom and only their mom. Only their mom was pulled, right? Like, who cares? We get so caught up in left or right and what everybody else is doing, especially on a team. Well, that person got that. Well, you don't know their situation. You don't know they're going through a divorce. Like, don't look left or right. Focus on your goals, and take 100% responsibility for the results. Don't blame COVID. Don't blame, MLS or the board of realtors or what they've said on us. Like, you're 100% responsible because it's your bank account that's going to be affected. And once you start seeing it that way, then that you're responsible for every result and everything that happens in your life. Somehow I'm responsible for the 2 knee surgeries I had to have, right? You stop playing the victim blame game and you start being the victor that is going to do something about it. Maybe you didn't do anything to land in this situation, but at the same time, like, you're the one 100% responsible for crawling out of it. So reach out to your mentors, hire a coach, get with your leadership, and figure out, like, how do we get out of this? Because here's where I am by no consequence of my own or fault of my own, but I am at fault for staying in that, right? And so third quarter is all about you and knowing your numbers and doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing when you're supposed to be doing it. Lead gen when you're supposed to lead gen, have appointments when you're supposed to have appointments, take advantage of open houses, because we are some of those lucky people that have the opportunity to do that. And you know what? Tomorrow it can be gone. They could put us back in shelter in place and it could all be gone. So what would your month look like this month if in August they put you back in shelter in place? And you got to behave that way.
Right on. Jordan, I love, you have like the best one-liners. If no one has told you that, the chat box is filling up with one-liners. My favorite was take 100% responsibility, right? Like, we don't always, we don't control what happens to us all the time. We absolutely control what happens after it happens, right? Mm-hmm. A good example of that. And just so you guys know, like, Jordan's knee surgeries weren't like 7 years ago when she started. Like, these were like recent and during that. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Rock on. Okay, awesome. Laura, hello. Are you there? You look beautiful this morning.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you.
Okay, tell us about you. I've known Laura probably the longest of everyone on the call. So tell us about you.
Oh gosh, what do you want to know? It's hard to talk about myself, but
How many years have
I've
you
been
been in
real estate since 2008. I got my license when I moved to West Texas. After kind of going broke in a startup business, this is probably something you didn't necessarily know, but so we came to Texas with about $1,500 in our pockets. We spent $700 of it on a deposit for an apartment, and then I had to figure it out from there what I was going to do. I had a 2-year-old, and working an 8-to-5 job just wasn't going to do it because I didn't want to leave my son at a daycare from 8 to 5 or whatever long that was going to be. So happened to be that our landlord was, I guess, a big shot in real estate in Lubbock at the time. And I asked them, I said, Mr. Sorrell, what is there to do? What's the main industry here in Lubbock? And what can I do? And he asked, well, did you go to college? I said, yes, I have a major in international business. And I gave him my curriculum, basically there standing on the front porch of his duplex that I was renting. And he was like, well, have you ever thought about real estate? And I had no idea. I'd never thought about real estate, but I was like, no, tell me more about it. So he was like, well, look into these classes, talk to these people. And then when we were ready, give me a call. So 2 weeks later, I call him and I say, Mr. Sorrell, Laura Castillo, I rent such and such apartment. You said to call you when I was ready, and I'm ready. And he's like, well, yeah, the first thing is you need to get your license. I'm like, no, I passed all the courses and I've tested, and all I'm waiting on is my license. So he was like, oh, okay. So I went to work with him, not necessarily with him. I was his mentee. He was my mentor. And we were at Coldwell Banker. They don't really have a whole lot of training there, if anybody has been at Coldwell Banker. So that's where I got my start. Lubbock, if anybody has been there, it's very much a college town, and it's about a 250,000 people town. And at the time, we had close to 2,000 active listings on the market. It was a buyer's market, to say the least. And I was getting no training. They basically at Coldwell Banker said, here's a cubicle, here's a phone, go sell real estate. I'm like, okay, well, how? So I didn't really know absolutely anything. And Mr. Sorrell started throwing some leads my way. And I just thought I was kind of working those as his assistant. I had no idea that I was not getting paid until I closed those. So the first time I got a commission check, I was a little thrown off by that. Anyway, it took me very little time to realize that people were not going to be knocking on my door or lining up outside of Coldwell Banker building to request my services. And nobody really trained me to do this, but I thought, okay, the only thing that I know how to do, because I live in a town where I know absolutely no one except for my 2-year-old child and this man that I met who also sells real estate. So clearly he's not going to be sending any business my way, not the good ones anyway. So I started looking online, and I found out through some of my research that open houses were a way to do that. And I started doing about 4 to 6 open houses a week. And then someone mentioned for sell by owners. I've always been horrible on the phone to this date. I despise the phone. So I'm sorry, Adelina, I just have to say that. We all have our strong suits. The phone is not mine. And so I basically would go around, I would look up online all of the for sale by owners, and I would route them on my map, and I would target 10 for the week, and I would just make it a point to stop by. I would leave my car running, and I would just go knock on their door real fast, and I would just say, would love to get the chance to interview for the job of selling your house if you're ever going to be looking at hiring a realtor. Well, I ended up taking like 10 listings from doing that after about 4 months, and I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. That was my start in real estate. I guess after being a team leader, I realized that team leaders look very closely at people who have brand new licenses and start showing up on the MLS with closings. And so I was targeted by the team leader, the local team leader, fairly quickly. They started recruiting me heavily. And on one of those recruiting calls, she invited me to Bold, and I went to Bold, and that's how I ended up at Keller Williams, and I haven't looked back since. After that, I became productivity coach for my market center, like 2 years after I started my real estate career. I coached roughly 120 brand new agents into production. If anybody knows the Lubbock Market Center, Lindsay Bartley is one of the top agents. She was one of the agents that I coached. So I'm very proud of her. And then from there, I was offered the opportunity to come and run the Midland, Texas Market Center. And that is how I ended up here. Market Center in Midland was failing miserably. That's putting it lightly. When I got here, I told my general manager / OP, I said, I don't think I can do this very long term, so I'm going to make you a deal. I'm either going to be in the role of team leader for 2 years or until we hit 100 agents and X number in profit. He said, deal. And at about 18 months, I walked into his office and I said, I'm putting my 30-day notice in. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, I've hit my benchmark. We recruited 100 agents and we've hit this number of profitability. So I can't do this anymore. I cannot run a market center anymore. And so I went back to building my team on my own. And a few months later, I just saw that Adelina was posting all these things that seemed very energetic and very just full of life. And I was like, hey, what you doing over there? So she invited me to come over to Bellingham. I think this was on a Wednesday, and she was going over the weekend to Bellingham. And she was like, "You want to come and meet Ben?" I was like, "Heck yeah." So I booked my flight. I went to Bellingham 3 years ago, and here we are.
One thing about Laura, and you probably got this from hearing her talk, is she like she decides she wants something, she just goes for it. It's not, there's not a, she doesn't know anybody in Lubbock. She's gonna go do open houses and knock on for sale by owner doors. Like, you don't have to be like the queen of phones. You can just go knock on their door. Like, that's what a concept, right? And then, like, literally it was probably a Wednesday, and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to Bellingham. You want to come?" And like Laura just picks up and is like, "Yeah, let's go to Bellingham," with like no notice. And I think a lot of times we hold ourselves back by having things too planned out, right? Like you just got to go for it. And like, I mean, it's amazing when you do. Laura, talk to us, like, there's a couple times in your career where you've had to just overcome things like, you mentioned one of them being you didn't know anybody in Lubbock. There's plenty of people on this call who don't know anybody in their city. They just moved here. Anything else that you would add to that? Any other things that you've had to overcome?
I think most of what I've had to overcome is just personal, which affects my mindset. One thing that consistently shows up for me, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but is the fact that I get bored fairly quickly, and I just am not a systematic person. Unlike you and unlike Jordan and Sarissa, who go by the checklist and go by the book, my natural behavior is not that. And so I tend to get bored fairly quickly with what I'm doing and want to move on to my next project. That's how I think it's been my biggest obstacle, but it's also been my biggest accelerator. So I've had to learn to balance that. I've had to learn to live with that and to use it to my advantage. I would say that that's my biggest obstacle. I get distracted fairly easily, and I just kind of like Jordan, every so often I just want to quit. I just want to go grab a backpack and go and see the world and forget about real estate and forget about everyone that exists in my life. And that happens every so often for me. It's not a season in life.
Tuesday, I asked our director of operations where to send my resignation.
You crazy people. So Laura, basically, one of your like top strengths, which is like just pulling that trigger and just going and getting it done, it also becomes a weakness when you get distracted. Like, how do you handle that though? Right? Because we all know people in the world who restart every like 1 or 2 years and never get anywhere, right? Like they don't have enough compound effect to ever get anywhere. How do you like manage that, I guess?
I think I've learned to see it coming. I've learned kind of to identify the triggers, just like when I start feeling a certain way, I have to do things to take care of myself spiritually and physically. And normally, if I have a system in place to take care of myself, I can overcome it fairly quickly. Leverage is a huge thing for me. Because that's what kills me. It's the repetitiveness of doing the same thing over and over. And so I've implemented leverage in a lot of areas of my life. Like motherhood, I've wanted to quit motherhood many, many times. And apparently kids are just not returnable. But I've wanted to do that so many times. And I found out that if I added a piece of leverage, I love to work. That brings me joy. Working, building new things brings me joy. Making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches does not. And so I had to find that out. Helping Alan with homework, no, that does not make me happy. And so very early on, as soon as I could afford it, in fact, maybe even before I could afford it, I hired a full-time nanny to help with everything that had to do with the hard stuff of parenting, running to the store to get supplies for that homework project, picking him up from school, driving him to after school activities. And then I got to do the fun stuff of being a mom. Like, let's sit down and watch a movie. Let me pick you up early on Friday to go watch a movie, to go to the theater. That kind of thing is the stuff that I like to do as a mom. And it's okay that someone else does the stuff that I don't like to do. And it might not work for everybody. And if you're judging me, that's okay, but that's what works for me. So leverage is a huge piece that helps me overcome that wanting to quit everything. Same thing in my personal life. I have a personal assistant that does the things. Like right now, I just texted her that she needs to start opening an account for my racehorse business, because I haven't done that, because I was left up to do it 3 months ago and it still hasn't gotten done. So I'm giving it away to someone that actually can sit down and do it. Implementing leverage, I'd say it has helped me a ton in just overcoming that boredom and that I don't want to do this attitude. But that was a long-winded answer to a very short question.
I got it. Like, we were going back to, like, well, when you hit a ceiling, you see your ceilings ahead of time, and you're like, how can I overcome this ceiling? Is there anything else that you want to share, like, on overcoming when you get to a ceiling or when it gets messy?
I think I live in messy, so I've just kind of become okay with that. I think I have a tolerance for messiness that is wider than most people's. My carefree, non-detail orientation has also made me very tolerant to the fact that life is messy and that sometimes things are going to be broken and it's okay to just kind of close the door and to come back to it later. So I don't stress about that as much as I should. Right now, I would say it's as messy as my life has gotten in a while, professionally speaking. My director of operations moved to Chandler, Arizona, and of course, as Adelina well knows it, I didn't even know how to log into CTE to look at my business. Robin did all of that. So all of a sudden I found myself having to learn all these things. And my natural tendency is to turn my back on it and go, nope, don't want it anymore. I'd just go rather dig ditches for a living than learn how to deal with that. So I hired very quickly, and I hired wrong because I pulled the trigger on someone that I shouldn't have out of desperation. After that, I had to take a step back and just kind of say, okay, I have got to just eat the frog and learn the job myself before I can actually give it to someone else. So this is one piece of leverage that I'm not being able to implement as quickly as I would like to, because I don't ever want to be in the position of not knowing how to run my business when someone leaves.
Yeah, not being held hostage, that sucks, right?
Yeah, and Robin is on the call, so Robin knows that this has, Robin, and I'll share this with you guys. Robin did such a fantastic job on our team as our director of operations that she earned the right to go start her own team in Chandler, and we're nurturing her to become independent BKT. Right now she's part of our team, but she became so indispensable in my business that I was lost when she left. I mean, I was like, I'm not an emotional person. I wanted to crawl under a rock and cry when she left. I did. And she was graceful enough to still kind of run my business remotely from Chandler while she's starting her own team and training our new person who's getting groomed to take over that role. But I would say right now is the messiest my business has been, and it's because I lack leverage. It's because I lack the most important piece of leverage to a real estate business that I think there is, and that's the director of operations.
So Laura, if you were, let's say you're an agent, right? Let's put you in a different seat for a second, because you're being really honest. There are often times where we want leverage before we have a big enough business. What's your advice on that? What's your feedback? Because we can't leverage activities just any random time we want. Like, you've been in business 4 months and you feel like, oh my God, or you've been in business 3 years, but you've only sold 12 houses in the last year, right? Like, what's your, like, what would you say to that? Like, give us some advice.
This was a little hard for me because I'm the queen of leverage. Like I add leverage to buy freedom. But I think even though I'm not systematic and I'm not as detail oriented as you guys are, I am a very savvy business person, and I cannot add leverage until I'm making enough, bringing in enough revenue so that I can pay for that and still have profit. If I'm paying for leverage and I'm breaking even, I'm kind of just, I kind of just have a hobby. So I think if you watch your financials very closely and you add, and you're paying attention to where you have profit. I did not add leverage into my business as a real estate agent until the salary that I paid that person was at least 3 to 4 times bigger, or I'm sorry, my income, my profit level was at least 3 to 4 times bigger than that salary that I paid that person. Because I might be lazy, but I'm not stupid.
Somebody needs to hashtag that one, right? So Laura loves leverage. She's also a business person, and sometimes the reason I wanted to bring that up is sometimes we can hear that, right, and we can think of leverage as luxury, which is great when our business can afford it. I love that. Okay, you've been a productivity coach, Laura. So this last question about like the second half of the year is like right up your alley. What would you tell us? Like, here we are, 50 people on the call, like, and it's stayed 50, like nobody's even jumping off the call. What would you tell us? How do we end strong? I mean, how do we make sure that we have a really powerful second half?
Well, I would say whatever you're doing right now, it's what's going to pay for your Christmas, first of all. Like this quarter is what's going to pay for your holidays, starting with, I start my holidays in October because I'm a realtor, October 31st, basically shut down life. Just kidding. Not really, but that's how most realtors act, right? This quarter is what's going to pay for that. And that's the other, if you've known me at all, and Adelina knows me very well, I don't like to count pennies. I like to spend whatever I want to spend, whenever I want to spend it, and whoever I want to spend it. And anything that gets in the way of me doing that is a problem. So I work really, really hard during this quarter so I don't have to watch my pennies during that last quarter of the year. And so if you want to have a big Christmas, and if you want to have a strong start to the year, you need to, my golden rule of thumb is if I don't go into the last quarter of the year with at least 1/3 pending of the business that I intend to close, then I'm already behind. So if you intend to close, let's say 25 units in the last quarter of the year, that's 7 pending by the day that you step into the first day of the quarter to be on track. Otherwise, you're already behind. So if you don't have that, what are some things that you can do? Well, we have the basics, right? Open houses are foolproof. Everybody, I think in our team this weekend, we're doing close to 16 to 20 open houses. I didn't count them, but we only have like 6 agents. So that's a lot of open houses. So find the activities that work for you. Something else that I do and encourage my agents and myself to do at the beginning of this quarter, or maybe even at the end of the quarter that we're coming out of, is you guys need to go through your year and put a name to every deal that you've closed and see where it came from and find your pattern. Find the pattern of what has worked all year. And if you're behind, focus on what worked all year and triple or quadruple your activities around those things that worked. If you're closing a ton of deals from your sphere, why would you spend it experimenting on farming? Just quadruple your activities and work your sphere. If you closed a ton of deals from open houses and that's what's been working for you, why would you spend it learning how to go and get a for sale by owner? I mean, do those things, but don't do them primarily. Does that
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, I think one thing that I love about our team, right? Like Ben always talks about like the pie and like, you know, there's so many ways to get business, so many proven ways to get business. And yet, if you look at any top agent, they've probably done all those things and narrowed down the top 3. Like in your first 2 years, really what you're doing is you're building a business, you're building a database, and you're identifying, hey, these 3 things are like my highest return based on who I am and what I like to do. And I am going to quadruple my time in those areas. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, maximize the things that you're already good at. It's when you already have an overflow of business and you have exhausted your main source of business, that's when you start exploring new avenues. You don't stop doing what is giving you results to go explore something else that you don't know will give you results until you've exhausted every possibility of getting business from that main source. Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. Absolutely. God, I love it. Oh my gosh, you guys are like the best masterminders. I love it. Everyone, do me a favor, go in the chat box and write the biggest objection that you're getting or the script that you need the most help with, because I'm going to invite these girls and I'm going to invite a few of our other top agents on our next call, which is going to be July 30th, to just like rapid fire, like handle these objections for you and with you, like your top scripts that you need help with, or the top objections that you keep getting that you just don't feel like you just do not have a foolproof way of handling that objection, because we're going to have a rapid fire script off with some of our top people. I'm super excited about it. Okay, love. The timing isn't right. I don't want to sell until I find my next house. Boom. I'm worried about the second wave of COVID. Yes, I need to pay off my debt before I can move. Waiting for a better market. Awesome. Keep putting them in there because I'm going to save all of these. And then I want to remind you guys, we were talking about having a strong second half. We have our next call for Bankini Nation, Place Nation. I think it's August the 4th, right? It's the first Tuesday. And I wanted to remind you, it's going to be on For Sale by Owners. And some of the top people that I know are doing it: Jacqueline from Vancouver, Jason from Montana, and Jake from Sacramento. So you've got like medium-sized city, big city, and then a small city. So all of you who are in different areas will be able to get something from it. So I want to make sure that you guys are going to be on that one. If you need a lead gen lever because you're not getting to the goal that you've set, this will be a really, really good one. Because they're masters at it. I love it. You guys are awesome. I will send you guys out this recording after our call, and I can't wait to see you guys. Laura, thank you so much for just being so honest with us, right? Like, definitely not like, this isn't the Keller Williams stage where everybody says the right thing. This is the Bankini team where we're honest and transparent with each other so we can grow as fast as possible. I appreciate that about you.
Well, I think I'm always the person that I need to want when they ask me to be interviewed. I'm like, are you sure? Because what do you want me to say? Because I don't know that you're going to love everything I have to say. But anyway, I appreciate you giving me the space to be transparent.
You're awesome. We took a lot out of it. Thank you guys so much. Go crush your Thursday. I'll see everybody on Chris's call tomorrow if you get on, and have an awesome weekend. Bye, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Hey, Karen. I just
realized you just like scared the living daylights out of me. I was like, who's seeing into my soul right now?
I just wanted to say hi.
Hey, bud, how are you?
Doing okay.
Why don't you show your face during the call?
I was eating.
Oh, me too. Look, I got our favorite food. Judy, you're crazy. Judy, your video today was about to give me like a heart attack. Here's Judy. La, 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 la.
Well, welcome to my daily life. I was like, Laura was talking about leverage, and my Instacart order arrived with my groceries. I was like, oh, hey.
All right, so especially in that environment, you have to turn off your video because that it makes us all have a headache. I'm being super direct and honest. Love you, mean it. Can't do it. Can't do it. That's how I talk to my agents. I'm like, can't do it. No. Meanwhile, Adelina doesn't even know she's still got this this call going. And then we have random people on the call listening to our conversations. Memo, what's up? I've never met.
What's up?
I've never met Cindy or Daniel or Kyle. And Xander is a guy that I'm talking to out of California that feels very energetically like us. And he's an individual agent out of Palo Alto, Cupertino. Is that right, Xander?
Yeah, Palo Alto Market Center.
Yeah. So
Love the call. Really cool call.
Yeah, it is a really cool call. Adelina's built something ridiculous. So, and Brandon is one of her first hires. I think he was the second person I ever met when I first got there. Remember, we were in the back of the room, and I was like, if everyone's going to be like Brandon, I have to join this company.
No, I appreciate that. I do remember that. It was at County Line in Austin.
Well, the first time we met was in the before Mega Camp business planning session with Adelina. Ben was in the front of the room. You and I were in the back of the room, and I sat behind you. And I felt like I was in a room with electricity. I was like, my bones were hurting, and I stood up and I said, "You guys are so lucky." Do you remember that? And I was like, "You guys are so lucky. I hope I get into this group," and then that was that.
And now look at you. I saw the picture of your team. It's huge.
Dude, it's huge. It's
That's
so
exciting.
good. Oh my God. It's so good because it drips of good people. I can't take it. I look for it. I run to work,
Yeah. No, it was cool. I saw the picture. I think it was on Tuesday, and it was like 14 people. And I was like, dang, I remember when it was 3 people.
Yeah. It's actually 18 people.
18.
There was one person missing in the photo, and then some virtual admins right now. And some really amazing people that want to join us, and we're working through that. And we've actually brought on 3 people during COVID that are actually in production.
Nice.
Brandon, 17 of our 18 people are in production.
That's badass.
Oh, I'm proud of you too. I'm proud of you and what you're growing out there. So let us know how we can help you in San Antonio.
No, I appreciate that. And we're at 5 right now, including myself. So we brought on 2 during COVID also.
Oh my gosh.
And then we just got more office space. So I'm going to get back in and hopefully bring on 5 more by the end of the year.
So
If not,
Xander, Brandon is someone you guys should chat. You guys are kind of similar in age and style. Brandon at benkinneyteam.com.
Great. Yeah. I'll find you on Facebook as well.
Cool, man. I'm looking forward to it. Well, I'll let you jump off, Karen. I just wanted to say hi. You were eating healthy spinach. I was eating breakfast tacos and stuffing my face with energy drinks. So I
Hey man, look at the CrossFit bod.
They let you in the market center with those guns?
I know, right? I had to lock and load, but
Karen, thank you so much for the invite as well.
Xander, no problem at all. We'll talk to you very soon. I can't remember. So it is August 4th. Okay, August 4th is the next one. Sounds good.
Yeah, FISBO. All right.
Oh, August 4th is the next BKT Mastermind, but then there's a call with Texas on the 30th. That's what's going on. All right.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Sounds good. Let's touch base before then.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you guys soon.
Bye-bye.
All right.